Socio-Climate Compliance for Resilience of Labor and Industry. So industry is a area where most of the labor work, and in this program we will have two presentation, one by me on a particular subject, which is a framework for the brick kiln workers, because they also work outside and they are impacted. Secondly, Ms. Rabia from ILO, she will also present how workers have to face while they are working outside in the heat and other temperature related situation or climate related situation. So in this program, we will have Honorable Chair here, Senator Samina Saiba. She is the chairperson and convener, Senate Standing Committee on Human Rights, Government of Pakistan. So she is the most relevant for us today for that. And I would like to welcome here for the panelist here, Mr. Frederick Santos, but with love we say to him, Fed. So he's a labor expert on global level. He has a study, he has roamed around. He's an expert from the global scene. So he will be presenting us all the way. He came from USA for this session. We have other friends also coming from US and colleagues from labor departments, labor unions. I welcome all of them. And we have colleagues from human rights. Iqbal Saab is with me. He's also a fellow panelist. And we have Mr. Ikram Rashid, who is our senior colleague. He's a senior advisor in the construction and other industry. So he will be speaking with that point of view, how industry can be influential or work for this very important area, which is climate resilience and social compliance on the labor rights, labor issues. So that's the precise thing which we'll be discussing in the panel. And followed by this panel, there is also a panel to commemorate the life and work of Mr. Karamat Ali, who is known in Pakistan for the labor movements, for unions. So he was a great visionary leader. Many of us followed him. So then we have a short session in that memory. Then after finishing that, there is a plenary on economics, what is the role of textile workers, agriculture, IT in the world. So that would be in another session, in another hall. So then we will move there. That's the precise agenda of the day. That's the introductory thing, and I welcome all of you participating here from various sectors, representing various sectors. So I would first request Madam Rabia for her presentation. So please play the presentation.
On the safety and health of billions of workers worldwide. Workers are often the first to be exposed to the effects of climate change for longer periods and at greater intensities. Excessive heat, solar UV radiation, air pollution, extreme weather events, vector-borne diseases, and agrochemicals are just some of the hazards exacerbated by climate change that workers face. According to the latest estimates, every year, over 2.4 billion workers are exposed to excessive heat at work, and around 1.6 billion workers to solar UV radiation. Air pollution is also a concern for billions of workers, particularly those that work outside. Hundreds of thousands of workers are dying from hazardous exposures aggravated by climate change. Extreme weather events are increasing, exposing workers to wildfires, flooding, and major industrial accidents. The financial implications cannot be ignored due to lost productivity, business disruptions, and damaged infrastructure. The moment is now to ensure safe and healthy work in a changing climate.
Thank you very much, Shafqat Saab. So I have about 15 minutes and about those many slides, and I'll try to be within time. I'm Rabia Razak, and I'm the Senior Program Officer here at the ILO Country Office in Islamabad. And I wanted to present the findings of what you've just looked at, the synopsis of the Global Heat Stress Report, which is also called Ensuring Safety and Health at Work in Changing Climate. Now, it's not hidden the aftermath of climate, and we have all been witnessing that for some time. Also in Pakistan, I think the 2022 floods opened eyes of many who were in denial, perhaps, and did not consider climate as a catastrophe that will not wait for states to realize that this will affect everyone everywhere. But that also something needs to be done and integrated in what we were also discussing earlier, an integrated approach to climate change. And we have Madam Senator here now. Assalamu alaikum, ma'am. Thank you very much for
Welcome,
joining
Honorable
us.
Senator, sir.
So the global report of the ILO that looks at the impact of heat stress across sectors of economy across the world have also unsurfaced impacts on workers' well-being, but also looked at it from an economic perspective. And I'll talk about those economic consequences of heat exposure in a bit. And of course, this also comes with a caveat that there has been very little to no data available in countries like Pakistan, where occupational safety and health, unfortunately, still hasn't been a priority within the so many complexities of the labor dynamics that we have to deal with. So going back to the report, and I'd like to, whoever is, yeah, I have it, okay, yeah. I don't know. Sorry. This one?
Maybe you can,
Okay. This one?
you do from yourself. It's okay.
Acha.
You will do.
Sorry. So, so basically, the report looks at 6 factors, and these key elements or factors have been selected on basis on their severity, but also the magnitude of their impact on workers and workplaces. And like you heard in the video, these are excessive heat, solar UV radiations, extreme weather events, air pollution, vector-borne diseases, and agrochemicals. Another striking figure that you heard in the video was 2.41 billion workers are exposed to heat every year. Now, what does this really mean? Rising global temperatures because of change in climate have resulted into severe heat waves, increasing mortality, reducing productivity, and damage to infrastructure. Now, excessive heat across these sectors, and to name a few, of course, where workers either work outdoors or indoors in in non-ventilated or less ventilated environments, exposes their risk to these heat stresses, and especially where the temperature is not regulated. Now, heat-related risks influence environmental conditions, as we heard. Physical exertion, clothing and equipment, or lack of makes it even more grave for the workers. Of course, we in Pakistan know workers in agriculture sector, in environmental goods and services sector, or what we also call as natural resource management, construction, refuse collection, emergency repair work, transportation, tourism are all exposed to different severity of heat and heat risks. The 2.41 billion workers that are exposed to heat also have work-related heat impacts. And these, if you look at the slide in front of you, 22.85 million of these workers face occupational injuries. 18,970 of these succumb to deaths because of these work-related injuries. And there's a 2.09 million disability-adjusted life years attributable to excessive heat. And of course, this does not impact the workers, in a short span of time, sometimes it has long-term impacts on the longevity of the workforce. That is essentially the human capital that we rely on to, in terms of economic boost, in terms of economic growth. So we need to make sure that we're investing in the right place. The second slide here talks about solar and UV radiation. Now, again, what is solar and UV radiation? Where are the workers most exposed? We're talking about non-ionizing radiation. The quantity of solar UV radiation reaching Earth is reduced, as we know, by ozone molecules, and with increasing climate change, the ozone layer thins, and which causes many diseases, especially diseases of the skin. And of course, in the long term, the exposure causes cancer. And this is a major concern, especially for workers working in construction, agriculture, power utility workers, gardeners, postal workers, and dock workers. And some of these are completely in the informal economy, which is invisible, which is not documented, where regulation is almost next to none. And these UV radiations can be hazardous for workers, especially when the workers are unaware of the exposed dangers that they're getting exposed to. Here, every year, 18,960 work-related deaths happen because of melanoma, non-melanoma skin cancer alone. Extreme weather events where we look at people who are killed or injured because of extremities like floods, droughts, wildfires, hurricanes, and workers who are exposed to these events, either during the event happening, the disaster happening, or after, especially in the post-cleanup operations, are most at risk. Now, weather events have also led to hazardous installations, factories, extraction sites, triggering the release of hazardous material. Again, in Pakistan or stressed economies like ours, we have little to no provisions of making sure that these hazardous substances are not spilled into communities and they're not contaminating the aqua or fauna or the marine life therewith. So again, it's not just the human lives, but lives of other animals and plants at risk. And the predicted increase in frequency and severity of weather under future climate change, again, poses long-term threats to many workers. Even with the evolution of workplace arrangements and employment, this is something that has not been able or has not been addressed in the existing policies and regulations by the government. Again, there is limited data when it comes to extreme weather events and their occupational safety and health impacts. Okay, workplace air pollution. Again, here, due to climate changes, there is an increased level of outdoor air pollutants and exposure, especially to some chemicals or some elements in the air, like nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, which causes, again, medium to long-term illnesses, but often workers are diagnosed with cancer over a certain period of time, which is already too late for them to have to get treatment or to become productive at work. So the rising number of wildfires have also increased emissions of particular matter that basically damages the ozone, and climate change concentrations of indoor air pollutants, which come from indoor sources, for example, mold, volatile organic compounds, are also transported into the buildings and workplaces, therefore increasing the exposure of workers and workforce to various illnesses. Here, the primary impacts related to health, as you can see, are cancer, respiratory diseases, cardiovascular diseases, among others. And if you look at the figures, 860,000 workers are exposed to work-related deaths, of which these are only the sort of outdoor workers, which is attributable to exposure to air pollution. Next up is vector-borne diseases. Again, diseases that are caused by parasites, by viruses and bacteria that are transmitted from vectors, such as mosquitoes, ticks, and fleas. Here, again, the increased risk of vector-borne diseases because of climate change and the effect on the population is humongous. Survival rates, reproduction of the vectors are, because of the climate change has also increased exposure, but also caused a disbalance to the natural ecosystem. The greatest burden of these diseases is, of course, in the tropical and subtropical regions, as we know. Climate change, however, has substantial expansion of these diseases to other countries and to other regions. Here, again, we know workers that work outdoors, farmers, foresters, landscapers, groundkeepers, painters, roofers, these are all construction workers are all exposed. Again, the data is limited. However, the diseases and health impacts range from dengue, we all know that one, malaria, there's Kegis disease, African tyrannopomesis, and others, which we might not even know of, but are exposed to. 15,170 work-related deaths are attributable to vector-borne diseases. I'm being asked to quicken up, but these are sort of findings that are very important. I will try to skip and hop. But it's also important that we imbibe these figures, because if we don't talk about data, we'll be talking about things in the air and may not reach recommendations that are practical and really solve the issue. But this is the last technical one, and I'll be over it. 73 million workers in the agriculture sector are exposed to risks and exposures because of exposure to agrochemicals and pesticides. And of course, this is an area where in Pakistan, plenty of work is supporting the farmers and the farming communities, especially children and women, with respect to handling of pesticides, but also with respect to using of natural resources more efficiently. So, so that may be something that we can say Pakistan is looking at more seriously. But here too, over 300,000 deaths occur annually because of poisoning caused by pesticides. So some quick impacts on mental health because of climate change. We all know job insecurity. We saw the layoffs during COVID, during flood, and this impacts mostly workers in the informal sector. And when we talk about informal sector, agriculture altogether is informal. But of course, we also know factory workers who are on contract. We know construction workers, migrant workers are most vulnerable and exposed. Specific occupations like those in disaster relief, recovery, construction, healthcare and care economy is increasingly on the verge of being too exposed and susceptible to these mental health risks, and also depression and anxiety. Again, excessive heat also leads to sleeping disorders, lack of concentration, workplace-based safety, but decreases productivity significantly. Now, The need is, of course, for, and we all talk about this at every other forum, to have national strategies and policies that are more aligned with standards. And these standards are, provided by the ILO. These standards are provided by different international organizations working on the occupational safety and health priority, but also on climate change. And these need to speak to your, local customized country-specific needs in terms of laws and regulations. It cannot be a blanket approach to what is happening at a factory could also be done, at a brick kiln. It doesn't work that way. So there needs to be a more localized approach when we talk about different sectors and occupational safety and health needs. Of course, it cannot happen if workers and employers are not strengthened and their capacities are not, worked on. So there's a need to improve the organization of workers, strengthen the workers' organizations so that they can sit together, have bilateral agreements with employers to improve workplace-based safety concerns, leading specifically on heat exposure or chemical exposure. I will not go through all of them, but of course, capacity building, leveraging public health initiatives, especially is very important. So you can mainstream and not, construct your own little mosque. On the national level, laws and regulations, I will not go through all of these points, but it's important that the provincial authorities do are informed by this, the national legislation and regulatory regime, because it's important that they speak to each other. After all, the reporting on labor standards, on compliances, on different treaties is done by the national federal government. So it's important that, their synchronization is there, and there's a collective approach, a joint up thinking on these issues, especially if you're drawing up climate, resilient policies. You cannot leave the, occupational safety and health out of it. So it has to be human-centric. It has to be worker-centric, especially because they're the singular unit responsible for your economic growth. These were some examples. Of course, we know countries who have moved towards collective bargaining agreements, where they have specifically prioritized and looked at these agreements to focus on heat stress, to focus on flexible timings, or on workplace-based measures that can help improve productivity, keeping occupational safety and health in mind. Here are some workplace level actions that have caused or that have helped improve heat stress. These are not rocket science. This can be done: rest breaks, shaded environments, ventilated rest areas, hydrated sanitation strategy. These are some of the more sort of quick wins, doable things. Now, takeaway is that we do not reinvent. We use the hierarchy of controls that's already available at the enterprise level, at the sectoral level. And this has to be the last slide. Yes. Climate changes, of course, poses a lot of threat to economic well-being and environmental concerns. Workers have to be at the center of it. I cannot underscore this, how important this is. Health conditions are linked to climate change, and we've talked about various diseases and impacts on health. Again, legislation may not need to be invented again. They need to be evaluated and reevaluated to be more aligned with climate hazards involved, or how climate hazards evolve. Mainstreaming occupational safety and health into climate policies, research in areas where evidence is little, especially in sectors where there's a lot of evolution of employment or of jobs, and jobs are being created. And the whole approach of just transitions, where workers need to be trained to take up new roles and jobs, it's very important. Collaboration with social partners, again, is very important. The state that cannot make policies on its own. It needs to sit together with employers and workers. Some recommendations on coordination among government departments. Again, that's something that is not only in relation to OSH policies, but everything else. Enterprises that are reducing workplace-based emissions and are moving towards sustainable practices. I think this is something that needs to be disseminated, talked about. There should be a community of practice who can that can exchange these best practices. Again, greening industries and technologies. Some of you have been bankers and can talk about climate financing, but also looking at different innovative techniques of doing things differently and finding solutions to these problems more at the indigenous level. And of course, capacity building and training programs that are important to empower workers, to help them build their own skills, but also workers to put in safety measures and a hierarchy of control. Thank you for rushing through this presentation, but I'll leave the presentation with the organizers and you're welcome to look through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Razak Sahib. I think you have narrated the situation where the workers are facing across the world and especially in Pakistan. Our own study for this framework, which we have developed for brick kiln workers and some of the textile work we have done. In that also, most of the things are very common because the exposure to heat, exposure to many things and all these diseases we have talked about, they are very relevant to, we have confirmed that these are also happening in these areas, particularly in brick kilns where we have been working. So I will skip many things and I will cut my time, and later I will try to request others to also cut their time, because all this is going live, in our 3 channels it's going live, because the links are shared for separate session to separate. So that's why the listener outside, they may not interrupt. So we'll be trying to conclude within time. And I require your, cooperation. And thank you very much. We have developed, looking at all these scenarios which Rabia Razak Sahib also built here. We have worked for the workers, the brick kiln workers, and developed a framework which is we call the socially and environmentally compliant brick kilns framework. What is that? That is that focus about 2 things. One is the social compliance. Second is the environmental compliance. And in that thing, we have also suggested a model for how the buyers can, the construction sector can support in this, how the owners can change themselves, and what is needed for the labor to understand. थोड़ा सा मैं इसको bilingual करूँगा because we have invited labor leaders also. So I will go, and my apologies. And maybe I can request you if you want to translate for colleagues here. I'll try to be bilingual so that others can also join us. बहुत शुक्रिया. जो फ्रेमवर्क हमने बनाया है इसमें आप ये देखें कि हमने जब देखा कि बहुत सारे ब्रिक किलन, अभी आजकल आप देख रहे हैं कि पंजाब में, लाहौर में देयर इज ए स्ट्रिंजेंट एक्शन गोइंग ऑन बाय द पंजाब गवर्नमेंट. वहाँ पे वो भट्टों को गिरा रहे हैं. ब्रिक किलन्स आर बीइंग डिमोलिश्ड because they are one of the cause of the recent smog which is hitting Pakistan, Punjab, and particularly Lahore. Even now until South Punjab and Multan yesterday, the air pollution level was very high. So that's why the government is also taking action. यही हम उनको कह रहे हैं. भट्टा मालकान से हमारा राब्ता है, उनसे हमने सेशन किए. So we have been asking, requesting them कि आप अपने भट्टों को zigzag टेक्नोलॉजी पे ट्रांसफर करें. और दूसरे जो लेबर है, लेबर के साथ हमने सेशन किए, उनकी ट्रेनिंग करवाई. उनको एक तो ऑक्यूपेशनल सेफ्टी और हेल्थ पे ट्रेनिंग दी है कि अब वो कैसे खुद को बचा सकते हैं फ्रॉम डिफरेंट डिजीजेज, और उनको अगर कोई ड्यूरिंग वर्क अगर कोई किसी चीज़ से हिट होते हैं तो हाउ दे कैन सेव देम सेल्फ फ्रॉम दीज काइंड ऑफ हैजर्ड्स. और तीसरा हमने एक एनालिसिस मैं आपसे शेयर करना चाह रहा हूँ, वो है कंस्ट्रक्शन के हवाले से. मैं बहुत सारी चीज़ें स्किप कर रहा हूँ. जस्ट speaking for a few minutes so that I can give you the gist instead of going slide by slide to save the time. We have developed this framework while we are asking the brick kiln owners that they should first get registered, their kilns, because if they are not registered, they are not complying with the standards, rule and procedures. And secondly, the labor working on brick kilns, they are considered as isolated. बिल्कुल भट्टे चुके हमारे दूर दराज होते हैं, लगता है कि वो मजदूर जो हैं वो शायद पाकिस्तान का हिस्सा नहीं है. यही वजह है कि ना तालीम वहाँ तक पहुँच रही है, ना पानी वहाँ तक पहुँच रहा है, ना और हेल्थ की सहूलतें वहाँ पहुँच रही हैं. तो ये जो हमने वर्कर्स से इंटरव्यू किए उनमें पता चला कि उनको बहुत सारा. फिर भट्टा के जो मालकान है, व्हेन वी टॉक टू द ओनर्स, उन्होंने कहा जी कि वी हैव टू स्पेंड a lot of money for advances which we extend to the labor. अच्छा, लेबर को जो एडवांस देते हैं वो पेशगी जिसको कहते हैं, वो कहते हैं जी हम ये देते हैं, कोई बीमार हो जाता है, किसी की फैमिली में कोई इशू है तो हम उसके लिए इनको पैसे देते हैं, और वो डेट बॉन्डेज हो जाता है एक किस्म का. दैट्स ए डेट ट्रैप और डेट बॉन्डेज. और उसके बाद फैमिली आफ्टर फैमिलीज दे आर सर्विंग द सेम किलन. तो what we have suggested to them is that instead of paying advance money which you are giving to the labor, आप ऐसा करें उनकी तरफ से pay contribution for three things. One is EOBI, Employees Old Age Benefit Institution. Secondly, Social Welfare Department, so that they can be covered under medical and social safety things. Thirdly, they should pay for the Worker Welfare Fund, which is for their, ultimately used for wedding of their children, for anything happens in their family, that is taken care of by the government. So, अब अगर वो ये तीन चीजें करते हैं कि वो वही पैसा जो वो एडवांस दे रहे हैं जो मिलियंस ऑफ रुपीस में है, तो उसी पैसे को डिवाइड कर दें उसके कंट्रीब्यूशन पे करने के लिए. ईओबीआई का अगर कंट्रीब्यूशन है, उनके लेबर का 6% है, इस तरह वर्कर वेलफेयर फंड का है, सोशल सिक्योरिटी है, अगर वो ये पे कर दें तो वो जो एडवांस देते हैं उससे भी बच सकते हैं और लेबर भी वहाँ पे इंटैक्ट रहेगी. फिर हमने उनको सजेस्ट किया कि लेबर चूंकि बदलते रहते हैं, तो एक भट्टा अगर उनकी पेमेंट कर रहा है, जब वो अगले भट्टे पे जाएं तो उनकी पेमेंट का रिकॉर्ड उधर चला जाए. ठीक है, तो ये हमने कुछ सजेशन भट्टा मालकान को दिए हैं कि आप उनको रजिस्टर करें. इफ दे आर फर्स्ट रजिस्टर देमसेल्फ as an industry and get the benefit of the industry. Secondly, हमने उनको suggest कि you have a barren land around your kilns, so why don't you cultivate it? आप उसको पानी का बंदोबस्त करें, you can cultivate it, make it green. बहुत सारा कार्बन एमिशन का जो सिलसिला है, अगर zigzag से कुछ कम हो रहा है तो you can also contribute in terms of greenery. And in greenery we have suggested them that they should give some money to these families working around and living nearby for their kilns, कि वो vegetable काश्त करें. They should have kitchen gardens around so that they can have their vegetables from there, and vegetation always is good otherwise for the environment. There was some suggestion for, the kiln owners, and then for workers, we have connected them up. First, we conducted their trainings, and then we have connected them with the organization who are working for the rights of labor, so that they can have their issues sorted out. If they cannot form unions at the kiln, there are unions, but they are very few in the kilns, because kiln is not a regular sector of economy. This is an informal sector of economy. That's why there is no unions there. So we have suggested that labor should be trained and labor should be told about their rights so that they can claim their rights. Except this peshgi thing or the advanced thing, because that is a kind of a blackmailing from both sides. It's not only owners blackmail them, it is labor also, because we heard the cases where labor was blackmailing them and getting more money, more advances. So they can get rid of it if they pay the social security, EOBI and other things. The brick kiln sector, basically, since it is not a regular sector, and that's why there is a system of district level vigilance committees, DVCs. We told when we asked the labor during our training and post-training interviews, do you know about vigilance committee? Do you know about these facilities? Do you know about health and safety of occupational safety and health kind of things? They were not having things. Then when we asked about, are you using these safety gears? They didn't know about that. तो ये सारी चीज़ें हमने उनको ट्रेनिंग में बताई कि आपको ये होना चाहिए, और हमने एक एक किट उनको प्रोवाइड की सो दैट दे यूज़ इट. अब उनको अगर हम रेगुलर, अगर सेक्टर रेगुलर नहीं हो रहा तो उनके लेबर सेक्टर को हम कैसे रेगुलर कर सकते हैं. So vigilant committees are there. We learned that everywhere there are vigilant committees working in each district. Not this is a very high powered committee in the district which is mandated to look after the labor issues, and particularly on the on the workers, brick kiln workers. But these committees are not ineffective because despite having the district management in it, district police in it, lawyers, journalists, all are member of the committee, but nobody turned to go and see their state of affairs at the brick kiln. So that's why this sector seems to be away from the eye of the law. That's why there is violation of law. And then we have suggested a incentive-based compliance model. As I discussed, the first one is on the brick kiln owners. Then buyers have a big role. And this role we have suggested. I have quoted here one study. In Pakistan, there was a study on a 4-story school building, education institution. Based on that education, the carbon emission has been calculated, which I have mentioned here. If you look at these things, the carbon emission has a contribution of 26.09 kilo per square foot. If you are building a huge complex, then see per square foot carbon is 26 kilograms. And if you look at, I have quoted here also the full carbon emission of the building, which I have referred here, 9,22,000. Look at the carbon emissions and carbon footprint, and ultimately that will be impacting the life and livelihood of the people. The five thing used in this, the major is the bricks, iron rods, bricks, cement, or many other things. But the biggest chunk of this carbon emission is from the bricks. So when the bricks are made, carbon emissions are there. Somebody has to pay for it, and they are the buyers. So buyer can pay or partially, shed the burden of the owners, which they say that it would not be compatible with them if they in the competitive market sell on a higher price. So for that we have this, I have calculated a full formula for the owners, since the time is not there that I can display for it. But I have already explained it to the owners and groups of honor I met in Lahore and many other places. I told them that this is the breakdown of your expenses to have 1,000 bricks made. But you are, for 1,000 bricks, you have carbon emission. So you are socially responsible that if you are in construction sector, if you are emitting carbon, 60% of which is, the biggest one is the bricks, then you have to pay back. Pay back in the, we have a formula. I have calculated it. If it is 2% plus, if you are paying higher, if you 2% or more, then you can be contributing and you can be actually trading your carbon. You are not trading your carbon in the open carbon market, but you are trading it within the sector, which is the owners. So this, and the Rabia already talked about the air pollution. So they are contributing to air pollution. That's why we have this incentive-based compliance model, which we are advocating for various buyers. I have discussed with Ikram Sahib, he is sitting there, that he and his sector would have been complementing to it. Mr. Ikram is, initiator of a big housing project, which was a green housing project. Unfortunately, due to certain other reason, it could not go as they have planned. But it would have been the first 100% green project in Pakistan, carbon emissions, everything they have calculated. So that's why I have requested him to be in the panel. So this model basically is for all, for the owners, for those who buy. Government is also one of the buyers because government departments made their buildings. So I am in negotiation with the government departments in Punjab government. Punjab government already taking they have picked up this point of environment. They are already taking action against, the climate related thing. So here I would conclude because this is the summary of the framework which we have prepared. Thank you very much, because time is short. So now, straight away, I will come to the panel discussion. Fred, you have heard, both of the presentations, and you have your own experience. I know in Asia region, except in these Asia, you have been part of the global things also. So can you share your experiences around that? Can you take the mic from here? Mike, you can take this mic. You can hear you.
Hello.
Yeah. So 5 to 7 minutes.
Sure. Let me start by saying this. They found Rosa Maria Andrade Reynosa's body last week. She was the final missing worker from Impact Plastics in Irwin, Tennessee. All in all, 5 workers went missing at this company, and they lost their lives as Hurricane Helene caused flash flooding in their area. The morning of September 27th probably started like any other morning for these workers. They went to work, started their shifts, when their phones started sending them messages and receiving texts from officials and their loved ones telling them that they should evacuate to higher ground. Reports are they asked their bosses if they could leave. The bosses and the owner said no, not yet. Even as water flooded the parking lot and rushed up against the doors and the lights flickered and ultimately went out, they kept asking their bosses, can we leave now? And they said no. A number of them finally left when the water was covering the parking lot. Many of them had to be rescued by helicopter, and 5 of them climbed up on a trailer to try to get away from the rushing water. You know, Rosa at one point called her husband. She said, "This is bad. I don't think I'm going to make it. Can you tell our kids how much I love them and take care of them?" Rosa and the other 4 of her coworkers were one of hundreds of people that perished during Hurricane Helene as it slammed into the southern U.S. The question that lawsuits and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation are going to ask, and their families are asking, is did they have to die? And I think we're at a crossroads here. We have choices, just like those bosses had choices at Impact Plastics, of whether we prioritize the health and safety of workers or maintaining our own profits. And we'll see what happens, but it's easy to second guess. But as water is flooding an area, I would hope that if I'm ever in a position to save the lives of my coworkers and people I care about, that I would make that choice. Now, I want to thank folks for organizing this panel. A great conversation. I'm going to try to keep my remarks as short as possible and move forward here. I mean, we know the context in Asia, right? It's hot. It's getting hotter. Sister made a lot of comments already about, the challenges we're facing in terms of the climate change and the number of disasters and the heat impacts. I want to talk and move forward and talk about a little bit of a study that the Solidarity Center in Cambodia worked with Dr. Laurie Parsons at Royal Holloway University in London, right? So let me summarize some of the findings, and these were released just in September during UN Climate Week. So the risk of heat waves is increasing in Cambodia. In 2024, Cambodia faced its highest average temperatures in 170 years. Heat waves of this sort now are 4 times more frequent than historical averages, posing a major risk to health. However, the health risk resulting from heat waves is uneven. Relatively socially disadvantaged people are disproportionately impacted by temperature extremes. However, these differences are difficult to measure and interpret. So the study that they did was one of the first to combine socioeconomic data with scientific core temperature measurement. So Dr. Parsons measured the impact of heat waves on workers in garment, in transportation, and the informal food sellers. You know, these workers actually wore sensors that measure their core body temperature during some of these experiences of a heat wave. So let me jump to the key conclusions of this study. First, economic impact. Productivity for garment workers was 30% less for those experiencing heat stress at their factory. Informal vendors, income dropped by 27% while under heat stress, while transport workers' income was unimpacted. Underlying vulnerabilities. Not surprising, workers most impacted by heat stress also had lower remittances and greater debts. Factory and individual mitigation. Very few factories introduced mitigation measures. There were some that were effective, though: cooling fans, dripping misting water, and increased breaks. And here's this finding I really want to focus on: impact of unions on heat stress. Union membership was a significant predictor of unsafe core temperatures. Non-union members spend 51% more working minutes at unsafe core temperatures compared to union members. Let me say that again. Non-union members spend 51% more minutes at core unsafe temperatures than union members. Unions' mitigation efforts and heat stress. Workers whose unions provided them information and advice on heat mitigation experienced 37% fewer minutes at unsafe core temperatures. Workers whose unions informed them of forthcoming dangerous temperatures experienced 33% fewer minutes working at unsafe core temperatures. Workers whose unions negotiate with employers to tackle excess workplace heat experienced 74% fewer working minutes at unsafe core temperatures. You know, while possibly surprising, the conclusions of this study align with my experience in the United States, where unions have been working to make their jobs safer, whether in the agricultural sector, right, or in construction, or in other sectors, are doing a better job, and those workers are more protected than their brethren who don't have the protection of a union. So we have a choice about what kind of future as we try to deal with heat stress and other impacts of climate change. And I would argue our ability to allow for freedom of association and collective bargaining, particularly around mitigation to some of the worst impacts of heat stress, is a factor in whether workers have a safer future at work or not. Let me stop there. I know we have a lot of other folks in the panel. I think I've made the main points I wanted to make today. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Fred. Certainly, it's important. You made the context in that. That takes me to the human rights perspective, which you just touched upon, the unions and how they can have the collective bargaining agent. So we have Mr. Iqbal Dethu from the Sindh Human Rights Commission. He's the chairperson, Human Rights Commission of Sindh, Government of Sindh. This is an official body on human rights. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Senator Samina Mamtaz Sahiba, Chairperson, Standing Committee on the Senate Functional Committee on Human Rights, Mr. Fade from the Solidarity Center and Imad and the SDPI and their other colleagues, Brooklyn Industry and Construction. Good afternoon. I think I'm, as a government body, as an oversight and monitoring body, because we oversee the rights and abuses, violations, and then provide redressal, and then we review the laws and policies, and then punctuate it with the training and all these 4 factors. So what brought me here at the table, that no doubt climate change and social responsibility, the intersection between these 2 things, it's the need of the hour, and we need a sustainable and resilient approaches to tackle these issues which are being affecting the industries and labor markets. Let me also apprise the audience that Pakistan, being a state party to many international treaties and conventions, because Pakistan is a state party to 34 ILO conventions, and 10 are the fundamental rights at work. 2, one is the child labor, minimum age of a child labor, and second is the worst forms of child labor, and third is the prohibition of bonded labor, and then abolition. 2 are related to the non-discrimination, that is the equality and equal wage, and 2 with the right to association and collective bargaining, and 2 are with the occupational health and safety. These are the 10. So Pakistan, being a state party and compliance to the GSP plus regime, and we are obligated to fulfill many obligations. Recently, Pakistan government also enacted the amendment in the constitution where they incorporated the Article 9A. And Article 9A, though it is concerning with the right to clean, healthy and sustainable environment, but in 93, there was a Shaila Zia versus Wabda case, where back 2 decades before, at that time, the Honorable Supreme Court has expanded the scope of the fundamental rights, that even right to life is not a vegetative life, and that includes right to clean and healthy environment. So when we are talking about the bricklins, and when we as the oversight body are working with the bricklins, environmental aspect, which the Rabia and you had assessed, I will be more focusing on the social aspect of the compliance. The one issue is that these all laborers, they do not have a right to legal identity. पहली तो बात ये है कि जो लोग भट्ठों पे काम करते हैं, those who are working on the bricklins, they do not have access to legal identity, means they are not provided the computerized national identity card. So the first thing we did with other partners' support, including the Solidarity in Sindh, we initiated the cooperation with the NADRA, that in the first place we need to register and to facilitate them to have the CNIC, and also to get the child registration certificate of their children who can be enrolled in the nearby schools, and they can access the social benefits and any other social safety nets. So one issue is of the bricklin workers, and the social aspect is right to legal identity. Number 1. Number 2 is challenge of the registration. The regulatory authority, the Labor Department, they had to register the union according to the Factories Act, according to various legislations. But what is the issue? Issue is the registrar who registers the union, these workers are not unionized, they are not integrated. The issue which you raised, Dr. Saab, that you need to train those workers that how they should realize these rights. Either they are in the economic, social, cultural rights, either they are the constitutional rights, either they are the other special rights. So we need to organize them how they should claim and how they should connect to the supply side institutions. तीसरा इशू जो है, that is the main issue, that the employer is not going to pay the share for the employee social security institution. Honorable Senator Sahaba, 6% of the employee's salary has to be given by the bricklin owner. According to the minimum wage, which is in Sindh 38,000, that comes to the tune of 2,200. If 10 workers are at one bricklin, the bricklin owner is not willing to pay the amount even multiplied, that comes to the tune 20,000 per month. So how they can access EOBI? How they can access worker welfare fund? How they can access social security? So with this, we are going to expand this program, and there is an endowment fund in Sindh. That endowment fund of 500 million is under the umbrella of the home-based workers. Though bricklin worker is not directly linked with that, the SESI commissioner in the Labor Department has moved the summary to the Chief Minister of Sindh that on the patron of the Punjab, that if bricklin owner is not going to pay, that amount should be paid or should be subsidized by the endowment fund. And I urge the donors, I urge the partners that no doubt we are doing many affirmative actions for these bonded laborers, for these workers. If in one tehsil, in one sub-district, in one district, at least 1 year we pay for the fees of the 100 employees, I think their 100 multiplies families will benefit from the worker welfare fund and all these things. So what are the challenges? Challenges, yes, district vigilance committee is there. Sindh Bonded Labor System Abolition Act, Punjab Bonded Labor System Abolition Act, KP, Balochistan. But who is going to oversight and monitor it? The very deputy commissioner. The deputy commissioner is the convener and the labor officer is the secretary. They do not have the hierarchy of importance for these footprints. So they had to have a rescue plan, rehabilitation plan, legal aid, and all these things. So in Sindh, we are trying to reactivate, to make a dashboard that what was the last minutes of the last meeting and what needs to be done. So 12 out of 29 districts in Sindh, 12 district vigilance committees has been activated. Around 200 in campaign with Nadra and with the SESI, we had made the cards, and we had brought 2 reports, which I had given this for the international compliance of the labor and human rights and environmental compliance. Lots needs to be done, but in the wake of the floods, climate change, and smog, which we are seeing, that it is not only the issue of labor, it is the violation of the economic, social, cultural rights, which are not being justiciable. Only the civil and political rights are being justiciable in the court of law. So I urge that these very rights to livelihood, shelter, health, education, employment, they must be treated as a fundamental rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Iqbal Sab. Since there is short of time, so I will not summarize or whatever. I will request Ikram Bhai to speak on that.
Thank you, Shafqat Sahab. The topic which was given to me today was on the bricklins, and most of the things I think you have covered to the best of your ability. I will be speaking on an issue that lies on the intersection of 2 global changes, climate change and workers' resilience, especially focusing on labor conditions and sectors of the bricklins in Pakistan. There are about 18,000 bricklins in Pakistan. It's not a small number, and which are producing 60 billion bricks a year. There are about 125,000 children below the age of 15 in Punjab and 75,000 in KPK and 75,000 in KPK who are working in these bricklins. With the hazard and the heat, they are malnourished, number one. They are dehydrated, and there is no clean drinking water for them. Lot has been said. There are unions, there are various other bodies, EOBIs, Workers' Welfare Fund, ILO. Unfortunately, has been said, but nothing has been done because of the attitude of the owners of the Bricklin. I've been into the construction sector, I've been into the financial sector, and I've seen over a period of 35 to 40 years in Pakistan that every time we have forums, we talk about these things, but nothing is being done, practically nothing. Although things can be done, making reports on various things does not solve the matter. Yes? No, thank you. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll come directly to the point. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. The thing, what I suggest, I can say many things. Time is short. We need to change our pattern. 60 billion bricks being made every year in Pakistan is being bought by people, industries, bought by the business houses, bought by the owners of houses which are going into the residential sector, commercial plazas, which lead to a lot of emissions. We need to change the system. Just a small example. I was in Hong Kong from 1978 till 1990. There was I saw a shift in change on the construction industry. From the traditional cement, brick, block, they moved on to the steel industry with a fabrication. One building coming up in 1 year, 50-story building in 1 year. That building is ready. You put up a structure, you cover it with cladding or glass, and the building is ready. Here we are producing bricks. And if we just replace these bricks with blocks, 6 bricks, 1 block is a replacement of 6 bricks. So 60 billion bricks, 1 billion blocks will cover 60 billion bricks. So we need to change the pattern. There is a microfinancing banks in Pakistan, as you very correctly said, that kitchen gardening, I think we cannot eliminate this bricklane business in Pakistan. It is a traditional business, but we have to change our mental framework. If small banks, SDPI can convince the microfinance banks, rather than this peshgi and advance being given, if small loans are given to the families of the bricklane workers, it will cover their medical cost. With the kitchen gardening, they can grow vegetables, they can sell it in the market. Like Dr. Yunus in Bangladesh, I remember we gave him, our bank gave him $5 million in 1982, the Grameen Bank. He started off, there was not a single rupee default. Not a single, it was given to women. I met Dr. Yunus, amazing person. So if the government focuses on these microfinance banks, low cost of financing, not much, 50,000 rupees, 100,000 rupees to a family, I can assure you there will be no default. Bricklane owners will come in line. There will be no bonded labor. And if we go on the prefabrication structures, all these things will eliminate over a period of 10 to 15 years. Northern areas are beautiful. The world is going on prefabrication. If we make prefabrication structures, we can make houses hotels, restaurants in the northern areas. All this brick lanes, gradually their sale will reduce and carbon emissions will be less. Children will go to school. They will look for other alternates. So we have to change the pattern.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ikram Sahab. Really good suggestions. Now, I would request Honorable Senator Samina Mumtaz Ahri Sahaba, Chairperson, Convener, Senate Standing Committee on Human Rights. Over to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah. Respected guests, thank you for having me here. It is an honor to join you all on the 27th Sustainable Development Conference. And I appreciate the SDPI for inviting me here. And, I appreciate the fact that I heard all of you. My condolences to the families that suffered in the, natural disaster that occurred there. And thank you, Madam Rabia, for giving us such a detailed and very learning, causes of climate change and the hazards that everybody's facing. I want to focus on an often overlooked mine workers issue in Balochistan. I'd like to take that opportunity to, while I'm here, that a group that embodies both the potential and challenges of building resilience in Pakistan. Basically, Balochistan, as we all know, is very rich in its minerals resources, and it makes mines a crucial economic asset for our country, obviously. But however, the cost of extracting these resources remains high, with workers facing severe risks every day. So the situation in Balochistan mines a very stark fragility issue. And here I appreciate the SDPI on developing, like Dr. Saab mentioned, the Bricklin framework for the workers on, and I hope that on a similar pattern, SDPI can actually hopefully expect that we can form a similar framework for the mine workers of Balochistan as well. Since recently I've got an opportunity to meet all the government and private sectors representatives of Balochistan mine workers and got their extensive input on the issues that they actually face. So I thank Mr. Iqbal Ditto, sorry. The fact that I really appreciate him whenever he's a part of my committees. They work very hard and they have extensive study and they're really working up, and even in the Punjab. But unfortunately, when I met with the Balochistan government officials and the people who are basically like the labor union councillors and labor departments and the EOBI and other departments that are looking after the interest of the mine workers, I had an unofficial meeting with them in which we opened up. We didn't have any booklets or any presentations or anything. They came right out and they said what the problems were. So the alarming real life stories that I actually heard, like, for example, how the events of when coal mines collapse and they're not expecting it. Like you said, they don't have proper, gear to go into it. They don't have proper trainings to see how it's done. I've heard even child labor is being used there. Half of the laborers that are working in the coal mines are not registered because they don't know what EOBI is. They don't know what the benefits are. We paint a very pretty picture for everybody to say, oh yeah, we have union councils, we have labor unions, we have ILOs, we have all of these departments that are looking into our workforce. But actually, practically speaking, people get scared. A minimal wage laborer does not want to work and register into one mine. There are about roughly 800 coal mines, but 500 are registered. Similarly, 50,000 workers that are registered, but actually, if you go, there's a calculation. I won't get into it, but in details, when I went into it, I went into like, after 4 hours, we were still not done of that meeting. And it was very painful. So like I was saying, the family members, once the person passes away, the laborer, they do not get paid the compensation that the family is supposed to get, because the owners must not have paid some kind of a fee or a deposit or initial whatever that he was supposed to pay. So the families suffer. And there's so many families, at least minimum 3 people die every day. Now there are precautions for some kind of gases that come out normally from, but because it's natural mine, anything can happen, any hazard can happen that is not predicted. So unpredictably, it just happens, and there are no ambulances available. Obviously, Balochistan is very rich in resources, but very poor when it comes down to our other institutes where, so where they like ambulances, health, we don't have hospitals, we don't have education. Because they paid minimal wages, they don't want to register with one person, so they want to go into different mines and work so that they can meet up with their, um, expenses daily that they occur. The mine owners avoid precautionary measurements because they also have to pay a fee towards EOBI. So I spoke to the EOBI people. I said, so how long is the minimum that a person has to register with you in order for them to get the benefits? They said, well, we have different packages. So I said, okay, give me 1 or 2 examples. I'm just going to make it very brief. They said, let's say after 15 years, you're going to get benefits. I said, if I find out at the age of 45 that if I register with you and if I die in the next 5 years, how do I get benefits? He's like, oh, we have another thing. But Manika, what if I signed up for 15 years? Manika, have you told your people? Have your representatives gone to these mines and told them about the benefits? They said, we tell the head of the labor force union. I said, do they tell them? But because they're mafias. The labor force has a mafia. The reality of life is this. And this, I know it's very easy to paint a pretty picture, but the reality of life is different. Bricklayer workers, be it any laborers, anywhere, in factories, otherwise, minimal wage is not given. I know the issue that you raised. I know exactly where it's coming from, and I fight every day for it. Problem is, what are we going to do about it? Like Sir said, these are very, I hope that you can come up with, you can propose a plan for us that we can actually, introduce to the government, because they're very cooperative. And I hope that they will listen to all of these suggestions, and, all of us here together, we can put up a proposal for them to help us to make Pakistan a better place for our people. That's what we are here for initially. So, the workplace has, like, Balochistan reports some of the highest rates of mining accidents in Pakistan. The last was Duki. And in 2023, there were more than 150 mining incidents, leading to over 50 deaths, and with 100 more injured. Now, these people don't have any security behind them, no pay packages, nothing. Economic insecurities, again, there, which is, again, the same thing. Lack of legal protections, like Iqbal Saab said. Nearly 80% of these workers are informally employed, therefore lack of access to basic labor rights, making it nearly impossible for them to seek legal recourse. And usually what happens, which is a reality, is that the head who's heading the mines, whoever's taking care of it, will actually shoot one worker to be able to implant that fear in the other laborers that they do not ask for their rights. And I have taken an initiative to go actually on ground and meet all these people and actually try and bring this thing into them. Balochistan's not exactly a safe zone to go, but I will take that risk. So then again, we have the climate vulnerabilities, like Madam Rabia said, where, we have extreme weather conditions in Balochistan. Now, we're very clear with the challenges that we have, and we demand action. But I have recommended through my committee that the ILO Convention 176 to ensure the safety and health of mine workers, and also a policy framework and plan of action, explicitly spelling out the definition of conflict of interest which is needed to ensure the implementation of the Mines Act 1923 and all provincial laws made in this regard. But the capacity of mines department needs to be enhanced by the increasing the number of trained staff again, especially in the area of mine inspection, which, by the way, they said that we only have 3 inspection cars. So how are we supposed to, because it's a huge area. Increasing the frequency of inspection visits and pursuing cases of violation in the courts. I'm sorry, that's also another disappointment. In reality, I may say whatever, but the presence of mine engineers must be ensured, and their absence must be there should be a penalty. They should be liable to penalties. So then we have another issue, the Afghan refugees and the nationals of other countries that are working in Balochistan and these mines that are not registered. So as and as they are more susceptible to become bonded labor and being expelled from work without any notice. It's a plus plus for both sides, and then also a minus at the same time. Awareness and training and safety measures, like I said, needs to be a very important feature. And this responsibility again lies with the Mines Department. And I'd like the Prime Minister to hopefully press upon this issue. Enhancing social climate compliance for resilience, implementation of health and safety protocols, registering the mine workers under Pakistan labor laws is essential. By doing this, access to social protection benefits, including compensation to workplace injuries, will be given, pensions and health. But most importantly, I think education and awareness initiative needs to be taken. And I'm making this very quick and short. Promoting economic security through livelihood programs, like Mr. Ikram said, giving them alternative livelihood options or skill development programs can reduce the economic dependency of communities on high-risk mining activities. Problem in our Balochistan, before I conclude, is that, you see, they're very highly skilled people. They're very hardworking people, like all of the provinces around. But at the same time, we don't have job opportunities. That frustrates them. And when they're not given those opportunities, that is when we go into different other, walks of life where it causes harm not only to us, but also to our other people and the reputation of Pakistan. And we all know what we're talking about, unfortunately. So if we take, just to achieve all of this, if we get the government support and we look up to the Prime Minister and relevant ministries to commit resource and to enact policies and build the collaborative frameworks necessary to make real change, rather than just making, presentations, to allocate dedicated funds for mine workers and welfare, by setting aside specific funding for improving mining infrastructure, healthcare and facilities, climate adaptation measures, the government can directly improve working conditions. I'm working with the CM on this also, the CM Balochistan. Establish a national committee for mine workers resilience. This committee will include the Ministry of Climate Change, Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Human Rights, to create an integrated approach to worker welfare and climate resilience. Empower the local governments, labor unions, again, and this will, give the community a level, ensuring that national policies translate into meaningful changes for workers on the ground, and promote cooperative accountability and partnerships, which will invest in safer technologies and ensure socio-environmental responsibility, which is very essential at the moment. And this conference actually represents a powerful opportunity for us to gather all the insights and share experiences which we have. And with that, like I said, we can all gather our recommendations. And I urge the SDPI and its partners to comply a comprehensive set of recommendations focused on a policy reform, resource allocation and community engagement, which we can present to the Prime Minister office. Let this hopefully be the conference which has the starting point for the national agenda that transform Balochistan's and Punjab and Sindh's all these labor issues from one of the fragility to the other, which is resilience. Balochistan's mine workers represent both the struggle and the strength of Pakistan's labor force. They deserve to have full commitment on our government, industry leaders, and communities to create an environment, because obviously coal is one of the biggest assets coming out from Balochistan. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for bearing with me. I cut this short. Thank you. Lovely meeting you.
Thank you, Senator Samina Mumtaz Sahiba, for taking this agenda to the Prime Minister and to the government. I think this will be great, that it will be a great service to the labor of Pakistan. Thank you for your participation and your comments. Now I would request Dr. Abid Qayyum Suleri, Executive Director of SDPI, for his remarks. Closing
Well,
remarks.
thank you. Not the closing remark, just wanted to thank Madam Senator. Her remarks are very, very, very reassuring and encouraging. And I think they link with the main theme of our conference, from fragility to resilience. It is music to ears that the chairperson of Senate Standing Committee on these issues, she is aware of all the problems, and she can take it further. Ma'am, I will request that maybe in the weeks to come, if you can invite some of the stakeholders here in your next committee meeting, where they can actually present you not only the compilation of recommendation, but some of the things that you mentioned here, so that in a formal setting you can take a note of the plight of laborers. You will have the concerned departments over there, be it the provincial departments responsible for the safety and security and the better conditions for workers, or the organizations like employee old benefit, etc. So please give us a chance, invite us in your next committee meeting, and we'll definitely like to take this agenda forward and to support you so that you can bridge the gap between policy recommendations and actions at the ground. Thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to having whoever's willing and interested, most welcome. I'll set up a date. I already informed my secretary committee. I said we need to organize a meeting where we all need to come together and, bring forward the actual facts and issues that we are facing in Pakistan so that we can, and then, your advice, because obviously your experience on ground is a lot more than mine. So I'd like to learn, and I always encourage honesty, so that how we can actually go up to the right people and get the right work done instead of being filled up with information that is unnecessary. We all know what the issues are, but we need to address them now. I think it's about time. So thank you, everyone, again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
Very much. And in continuation of this session, we will have the session again on the labor, but we will celebrate the work and life of a great labor leader, Mr. Karamat Ali. So please stay tuned.
We'll be having friends and
Yeah.
fans of Karamat Ali who passed away earlier this year, to recall his memories, recall his struggle for labor issues, and all those who are interested to join, kindly continue to stay here, and in the next couple of minutes we'll be starting the next session.
Thank you.
Oh yes. Heard a lot about your good work.